When you're buying a deal, any deal, but especially a multifamily, you have two components of the financing, and that is the deal. We got the deal. Now we need the debt. Okay. And then we need the equity. So debt is like how much, what kind of loan are we going to get? How much down? What kind of terms? What rate? How long? And then the equity is, how much money we're actually going to have to put down. How much money are we going to need for the renovations and the capital expenditures and so on and so forth. We took all that information to the bank, met with about 6 different banks in the same day, guys. So that's important. Like as soon as we got that deal under contract, we got 30 grand on the line. The clock is ticking. What's up, guys? Dan here, and in this video I'm going to be going over how I bought a 26 unit apartment complex at 23 years old without a rich uncle. I'm going to be going step by step through finding that deal, negotiating it, closing it, getting the financing, what inspections, what due diligence we had to do, what rehab we had to line up, getting the equity portion, the bank financing, all the way to the closing table. It was a long process. This whole thing took about 5 months or so from inception to close, but it's a great deal. It's going to be a great opportunity for us as the buyer, and then it was also a fantastic opportunity for the seller. So if you want to know how you too can buy multifamilies, 26 unit apartment complexes, or any kind of apartment complex, this is going to be relevant for you. I did buy it. I'm on title, and I'm only 23 years old. I've only been in this business for about 3 years and already, been able to buy this stuff. So I'm going to show you how. I want to try to give you a ton of value. So stay tuned. Let's get into it right now. Guys, a little bit about me. I'm Dan Kohan. I have been in real estate for about 3 years, mainly bought buy and holds the first year. Then I got into flipping. And then this year I've been mainly wholesaling as well as burring and still flipping and acquiring more rentals like this 26 unit apartment. So how did I actually find this deal? And let's go start from the beginning. How did I find it? How did I negotiate it? How did I get the seller to sell it to me at a great price? So guys, there's always a lot of multifamilies out there if you've ever been looking, but a lot of them are really overpriced. So finding one that is the right price is absolutely critical. So this 26 unit, I found it through a bird dog, basically kind of another young wholesaler, inexperienced wholesaler that's basically bird dogging deals. Literally, he was just calling and stumbled across the seller. The property's in Sedalia, Missouri, which is a small kind of tertiary market in the Kansas City area. Stumbled across this seller and just gave me his number. He's like, hey, this guy, has a building he would consider selling, talk to him. That's all I know. So that's all the information I got. My whole day-to-day is just calling sellers. As a wholesaler, you're talking to a lot of people. We're just trying to see who's a motivated seller. And this guy, I talked to him and he wasn't quite to the motivated stage. He was motivated enough to have the conversation with me, but not really motivated to where he had really a lot of pain or needed to sell right now. He set up buildings for about 25 years. This was actually one of the first projects that he did. He's now is done very well. He's got hundreds of units of multifamily. He's not in any kind of, problem or anything. He just, would consider it to maybe, 1031 and sell into maybe a triple net commercial property or something like that. So got to talking with him. I really wanted to buy it. So he wasn't, like I said, he wasn't very interested. So what I actually did is I need to get to know this guy. It's all about the relationship. And guys, that's one thing you'll find, especially when dealing with investors, is it's about the relationship, guys. Yeah, they may want to sell, but you really need to get to know these guys and you need to, be friends, and they need to understand you and what you're doing and build that relationship. And then these deals are going to happen, and I really went into it not expecting this deal to go anywhere for a while, but we're doing stuff in the area. This guy's a player. I want to know this guy. So he wasn't really interested in selling. He told me, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. Can I come and meet you? Let's just meet. Let's get the wheels turning. I'm doing a lot of business. At some point, you may want to do something. So he's like, yeah, come down. I have breakfast with my investor friends every morning at this Panera Bread. So he's having breakfast at 6 a.m. I live in Kansas City, which is about an hour and a half away. So I had to get up at 4:30 in the morning to get down there to his breakfast, to hang out with him and his investor friends and build rapport and create a relationship with this guy. Very awesome guy. Like hanging out with him, like being around him. He's got a lot of good friends. So, but I did this about 4 times. Went down there, over a course of 2 or 3 weeks, kind of got to know this guy and seeing what he was doing and what his friends were doing, and really understanding what his goals were as an investor, why he would even consider selling this building. We kind of got on the topic of he would probably want to sell or finance it or create a finance it to an extent, because he doesn't want to sell it and pay the taxes, because we had to kind of gotten to a price he wanted to have, he wanted to make $950,000 was his number. So at this 26 unit, that's about 30,000 a door, which is super cheap. And guys, these are not distressed units. They're, in good condition, could use an update, but definitely rentable. And the thing was just his rents were really low. He had a really high water bill he was paying, and he really just had not increased the rents much in the last 20 years. So his net rents were only about $400 a month, probably on average, or less, probably less than $400 a month. So he really wasn't making a lot on this property, owned it free and clear, but just had a lot of expenses. It was just becoming problematic. He had another business that he was making a lot more money in and just wanted to sell it, but he doesn't want to sell it and pay taxes on a $1 million gain, which is what he would be doing. So we devised a plan to buy creative finance where I would actually lease option it and put $30,000 down and then pay him basically 7% interest, and for a year or two until he could find a property to 1031 it into. So we kind of agree on that. He wants me to do all the due diligence, be very certain before I get under contract with him. So at this point, we have a really good relationship. He wants to work with us. He likes us. And that's the thing, guys, like these multifamilies, if you're going to do these good deals where you're going to work together and figure out the best terms for each of you guys, you have to have a relationship. These kind of things are really just not going to happen with on-market stuff or where there's really a broker involved or anything like that. When it's that kind of situation, guys, all you are is just a number. You're just an offer. You mean nothing to the seller, and you really want to try to go direct to the seller as much as you can all the time, because frankly, if we hadn't had this kind of rapport with this gentleman, I don't think we would have gotten this done. So then we proceeded. So now we know the guy's interested. We have a plan to buy a creative finance, and this is going to be great. So it's a BRRRR opportunity. There's probably $1 million in upside on this property. After we do it, I'll go into the due diligence phase, but we talk to local management companies, local other rental comps and things like that, and we can probably raise the value of this property probably $1 million, probably from 950 to about 1.85, 1.9 million is pretty realistic at a very reasonable cap rate. And investing, depending on it, we're probably going to throw about $100,000 to $200,000 in renovations into it, which isn't very much per unit, over 26 units. But again, the units don't need a ton. They really just need, cosmetic type of updates to get them, and just the property just needs to be cleaned up. The tenants need to be cleaned up to get this thing in really good shape. So that's kind of what we did. We were like, we'll figure out how to get this money. This is a great deal. We looked at it as a BRRRR opportunity. Day one, it's going to be cash flowing, probably break even or maybe slightly negative day one, just because the rents are so low at that price. As is cap rate, we were buying it at probably like a 7, maybe a little bit less, but that's because the upside was so good on it, and the cap rate was still decent, guys. I mean, you have stuff trading for literally like 5s and 6s now, and this is with rates even like at higher than that in the 7s and 8s. So to buy it at that is still a good price, but the upside is great because it really doesn't need, as is upside without doing any renovations. We can definitely increase that value, but with renovations, substantially more than that. But it's going to take probably 2 years to get all that done, stabilized, refinanced, and a really good property where the value is going to be there. So we go and inspect the property. We check out all the units. We walk every single unit and see what it's like, see what condition they're in. He had given us verbal descriptions, and we were able to look at a couple vacant units before, but we checked basically all the units. Basically everything he said was exactly true. And on all the units, he's very transparent about the condition, the shape of things. Everything was good there. We're pushing him to make a decision, right? Like he's still not 100% sure he's going to sell it. He's wary about the creative finance just because he doesn't fully trust us, which I understand, like to put a property in a random person's hands. This is the thing, like guys, it's going to be difficult to do creative finance when you have no relationship, because again, as a seller, you're underwriting the buyer like a bank would. You have to have the relationship. You have to have the credibility, the financials to back up. You're going to pay. You're going to take good care of the property, and then you're going to pay the bills, right? So we provided him with all this stuff. We're kind of heading down this path, and then he basically decides, hey, I went ahead, I found a property I want to buy. I'm going to 1031. I want to just do a conventional deal with you guys, and I want to buy this other property, and I'm going to 1031 right into that one. Okay, so we're like, okay, that's fine. The price is good. We're good. Conventional deal, no problem, right? So we have some cash at this point that we can put down. We have some financing options, but we go ahead, and he's like, I need $30,000 non-refundable earnest money to do this deal. We take a good hard look at it, and guys, that's a lot. Even for $1 million deal, 30,000 is like 3% of the deal. Non-refundable is definitely on the higher side, but like if you're going to close, it's not a big deal. So we took a long look at it. We're like, is this really a good deal? Can we get it done? And we decided that we could. So we wanted to take this down. So we went ahead and put up the 30,000 non-refundable on this deal to get it under contract. So the next things that we do is once you have a deal under contract, we had a 2-month close. And so now we need to line up the financing is basically basically what we need to do. Get the financing lined up. So guys, when you're buying a deal, any deal, but especially a multifamily, you have two components of the financing, and that is the deal. We got the deal. Now we need the debt. Okay. And then we need the equity. So debt is like how much, what kind of loan are we going to get? How much down? What kind of terms? What rate? How long? Okay. And then the equity is, how much money we're actually going to have to put down, as well as how much money are we going to need for the renovations and the capital expenditures and so on and so forth. Thought it was a good deal, guys. And so we went ahead and put our money down. Now I said, we got to figure out the debt and the equity, right? So what did we do? We called a few brokers that broker loans as well. And we checked. So the one thing about this property, since it was less than $1 million in loan balance, we couldn't actually get like a Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae loan, a small balance loan, which is great, fantastic financing. It is more expensive to get, but typically a lot lower rate, a lot longer term. The other thing about this property is that it probably didn't have enough financials to qualify for that. So we pretty much limited to rehab funding our local banks, relationship type banks, right? Knowing that, we went to the town of Sedalia where we have no relationships, and we literally set appointments with every single bank in the town, every single small local bank that we could. So probably called and set appointments with at least half a dozen banks in the town. We generally avoid the big banks, the nationwide banks, because they are not really going to be as friendly to you or as relationship based as a small local bank that is just in that area or in the surrounding local areas is going to be, guys. Now that's a key thing. Even with our rehabs in any area, guys, we're pretty much just sticking with local banks. That is banks in the town that they make decisions right there at the branch, and you can build a relationship. You can get loans done very quickly and effectively. We have good financials. We have good down payment. We're very credit worthy for sure. But when you're trying to deal with like US Bank or a big national chain bank where they have to run the loan through 3 committees and they just can't make decisions, they don't care really about the relationship. They're all just, it's a number. Decision makers aren't at the branch and all this stuff. Like it becomes very difficult to do loans. So we hit every local bank in town. We sent the same exact financials, our business plan. We had created a rehab plan, done all the underwriting for the bank. And they love that, guys. Like the more detailed you can make your underwriting, your plan. We actually went to like ChatGPT and had it help us write up a very nice presentation on and what a pro forma is, basically your plan of attack. So like, what are you going to buy it for? What's your plan? What's it going to be worth? And calculating all those numbers out, doing all the due diligence for the bank. So that way they can look at it and then they just like check what you got. They check it against what they know. And they're like, okay, looks good. Checks out. This is easy loan, guys. You've already done all the work. Good job. That tells the bank that you're a very competent operator, that you've ran your numbers correctly, and that you're a professional. Because the bank wants to deal with the professional, guys. They want to deal with somebody that's on the ball, it's going to pay back the loan, that's going to take good care, execute on what they say they're going to do, right? So, the more you can put that together for the bank as well as potential investors on your deals, the easier it's going to be. And that makes a huge difference, guys. If you just walk in there with nothing and you're asking them to give you, $1 million or $750,000 for your deal, they're just going to be like, go away. Like, we don't, I don't understand what you're doing. You don't seem very professional. Go away. So make sure that you really work your numbers, you make sure they're right, okay? And that's another thing, guys, is if you're finding good deals, guys, and you've done all this work, you need to make sure that it's a good deal. A lot of wholesalers, as well as multifamily investors, even professional institutional level investors, guys, they run some fluffy numbers. They run their businesses on projections and estimates that, a lot of times don't exist. Generally, we are running our numbers on today type of numbers. Like if we get them to the right shape, what is it going to rent for today? Okay, because the future, we don't really know. Generally rents appreciate, but if you're planning on rents appreciating to get your numbers, guys, I mean, you got to be really sure that and have really good data to back that up. Because if it's not there right now, especially at the current economic climate where the government is putting pressure on things, they're trying to slow the economy down by raising rates. You don't know if it's going to get there, right? So we always do our underwriting on today's numbers, or with 6 months from now is like the most, that we're going to project out, right? And if we can hit it on today's numbers where we're certain the rents are at, we're very certain on the rehab cost. And of course, we can't predict everything, but based on everything we're doing, we have very firm numbers, very firm understanding of what we're doing. That's the numbers we're going to use. And if it pencils that way, we're going to stress test it for a lot of vacancy, potentially the rents not being where we want them to be. If it works still, then we're going to do that deal. And the bank's going to see that and they're going to be like, okay, these guys stress test this deal. They know it's going to work on the bottom. If all else fails and the rents drop, 20%, or they don't hit the numbers that they're going to hit, this still still going to make enough money to make the payment and get along, right? They're going to be very interested in that deal. So we took all that information to the bank, met with about 6 different banks in the same day, guys. So that's important. You know, like as soon as we got that deal under contract, we got 30 grand on the line. The clock is ticking. So the time to act is now, because it's going to take them time to run their appraisal as well as run this deal through underwriting and all that stuff. So this is the most important part, is the financing, guys, getting that financing lined up as quickly as possible. So, you know, all the banks were right in that. We wanted to get a 20% down loan was ideally what we would like. And then we wanted to get it on a 20-year or better amortization with a 5-year term, guys. And that's what most banks are going to offer you, is a 5-year term on a 20-year amp. Now, in this kind of deal, getting a 20% down is really good because, as I said, it's going to barely cash flow day one because you're pitching it as a rehab project, guys. And that's what we're going to do. You know, the bank may be okay with low cash flow in the beginning because, like I say, we're going to raise those rents, raise that very quickly over the first 12 to 18 months and get that thing, you know, cash flowing like crazy. So we went ahead and we talked to a bunch of banks and we ran across one that was, you know, very interested. They were like, we went there, we sent them over that stuff that morning, scheduled the appointment, and they literally were like, well, can we go see it right now? You know, never had a bank do that before where they want to go see the property immediately. They were like, we like this deal. Let's go look at it. Can we get access? I'm like, yep, we've got lock boxes on the thing. We literally loaded up the bankers and us and went over to the property, which is a few minutes away from the bank. And that's the thing, guys. That's the advantage of a local banker, guys, is that like they're local. They understand the market. They're doing loans there all day long. The more local they are and the more they know the area, the quicker they can make decisions with certainty, okay? Because they know the more you know, the easier it is to make decisions, right? So this is why we generally avoid brokers as much as possible, especially ones that just are brokering products nationwide, because the broker is an intermediary. Not that brokers are bad, right? But the problem is that when they're brokering nationwide type financing and the people underwriting the deal don't live there, they can't go to the property, they don't understand what you're doing. They may understand it from a conceptual level, but they really don't know the deal like you do. There's just going to be a lot more friction, a lot more questions, a lot more, you know, gotchas in that process. We've had deals that have blown up in the days before closing because the underwriter said it just doesn't work, right? Even though they said it was good, they flagged it and it didn't work, right? So like you want to avoid that at all costs. So the local bank is going to be able to make a decision very quickly, all right? Because they're the ones that, the guy that's going to sign off on this deal went to the property with us, right? Like he's the final decision maker. So that's who you want to be talking to ideally. So we went out there, checked it out, went back, and he's like, let us look at it. We'll get back with you in a day or two. So we did. And he's like, all right, we'll do the loan. You need to come up with, you know, 20%. We need to get your tax returns, right? And we're like, okay, we can do that. So we didn't have 20%. We had pretty close. We probably had like 10% saved up. And so we had to now raise the equity. So now we've raised the debt. We know we can get a loan. We have the rate, we have the term. So we ended up negotiating, we got 8% rate. We ended up getting a 17.5% term, or 17.5-year AM on a 5-year, actually on a 3-year term with a 6-month IO. So about 3.5-year term, and the first 6 months was going to be interest only payments. And then it was going to be an amortized loan, which is fine for us because we plan on refinancing within 2 years or seeing what we're going to do at that point, reevaluating, you know, because the property's going to be worth a lot more. And we're going to see, we might get a, you know, different loan with that same bank or whatever. So that's fine with us. So guys, yes, we have the equity portion of the deal. We got that loan secured. Now we have to bring the equity to the deal. So that loan, guys, was a 20% down loan. What we ended up doing is 20% down on the loan. And then we're going to go ahead and bring the money for renovations out of our pocket, around $150,000 for this property. In certain cases, you can actually get a loan where those are escrowed into the financing that you get. And we did look at those options. For us, it just made sense with the partner we brought on and the financing terms that we could get. It was actually going to be a lot cheaper for us to just bring the cash out of our pocket and then just get a lower loan balance, have better terms on the loan with the rate and the down payment and that way. So that's what we ended up doing. For the equity portion, guys, now we have the financing with the deal, the debt. Now we need the equity, which is the money we're bringing to close, as well as the reserves and the money for renovations. Guys, I know I just paused randomly and I changed my shirt. I'm actually picking this up a few days later, got interrupted. So with the equity, originally we were going to, me and my partner Austin, we're going to go ahead and bring the entire amount of the down payment and the renovation budget, which was going to be about $350,000. Of course, we don't need the entire renovation budget immediately. We can spread that over 2 years or 18 months as we do that. We did need the 200 grand for sure, plus some extra for reserves. So we didn't have that right when we did it, but what we were planning on doing was selling off some of our rentals and then taking that money and putting it it and applying it to the down payment. So we started that process initially. As these things are very time sensitive, we only had 8 weeks to actually get this deal done, or 2 months. So we immediately put our houses on the market, which if they'd all sell, we'd have ample amount for the down payment. That was a big if. So that was the original plan. We were still looking for partners or potentially short-term lenders that would lend us the money for the equity, because we knew that within a short period of time, we could refinance them and get them out of the deal or just pay them off cash. What we ended up doing is we set that plan in motion to go ahead and just pay for it ourselves and not bring on any partners, which probably ideal at the moment. We got into the deal a little bit more, and about a month in, we realized that the houses were not going to sell as fast as we needed to. We had the debt lined up and everything, but we weren't going to really have the money. So we were either going to have to get a loan, we were going to have to bring on a partner, or we were going to have to wholesale the deal or cancel the deal, right? So the big two really were we were going to try to wholesale it, or we were going to try to bring on a partner. My partner, Austin, is more hesitant to bring on partners than I am. That being said, I am still hesitant to bring on partners, especially in a long-term deal. And this one, our intention was to stay in this deal for years. 7 years is the plan right now, which is the optimal time to raise the value and collect the rent, as well as benefit the most from the tax savings that the building provides. And then we would sell the building, roll it into something else, where then we could reset those tax benefits. So ended up revisiting one of the partners that I had, a gentleman that lives in town, in Sedalia, the town where the building's at, and has a management company there, has a building company there. Very good guy all around. We had originally, before we really locked the deal up, we gotten serious with it. We had approached him with it. I don't know if we just we're talking past each other, but it didn't seem like he was really interested with the kind of structure that we wanted on the thing. But after we had, I came in the second time, it was really fleshed out. Again, we had everything basically put together. We had the pictures, we had the renovation budget figured out. We were going to have his company manage it, right? We talked to him and figured out a great deal where we basically were going to bring half the down payment each, split the deal 50-50 between his organization and our organization. And he was going to help manage the building and then do a lot of the renovations there as well on site, which is great for both of us because he lives there in town and all his stuff is in town, whereas we're an hour and a half away. And then all of our contractors and everything are here as well. So it would have been a big pain for us just logistically trying to manage that project, where it's a lot simpler for him because it's right in his backyard. So worked out really great. We were able to have that conversation and basically work that entire deal in one night because we had everything so well put together. We'd really converted it into a yes or no type of decision. We basically had the returns figured out. We had the debt figured out. We had the renovations figured out. I mean, everything was figured out. It's just a matter of plug in the money and plug in the work and, you're good to go. Thankfully, we decided to go that route after, evaluating. And also, there were some, we've talked to each other a lot of times and really interviewed each other as people with our core values and desires, down the road for what we both are wanting with the business and with this particular venture. And we found that we really highly align on a value perspective as well as a, mission perspective on what we're trying to do with our real estate and our rental property and our business in general. That is very key, guys. Beyond any particular deal you do, you want to make sure that any partner that you happen to partner with is a cultural alignment with yourself as well as a core values alignment with yourself, meaning they have the same values, principles, morality, and that they are a very good, solid person that is going to, you want people that you work with that would rather take a loss than destroy a relationship. The last thing you want to get into is somebody that is a slime ball and is going to screw you the first chance they get, or is unethical or lies or all sorts of slights. Everyone's not infallible, but you want people with good, solid foundation to work with. With that, you want to make sure they have the same goals. They might be a great person, but on top of that, you have to make sure that long term they want the same things, because if you're going to join yourselves together in a business like this for 7 years is the plan, right? Of course, things can change, but if somebody we're all bought into this plan, are we going to stay bought in long term, right? So we have to look at the picture. All of us, we don't need this income to live on. It's going to be nice when it's going, but all of us can afford to wait 2 years while this building really gets up and running. And long term, we really want to build our portfolios and really build the financial freedom. So there's a very good alignment there with our expectations and, as best as we can, projecting what our desires will be through the course of the project. We've very fleshed out. That's one thing as we've created. And one thing that we do, it's not just oh, let's do the deal, handshake and a slap and get on with it, right? We literally, lined out in the contract and on paper, every single step of the deal, who's going to do this, who's going to do that, when are we going to do this, when are we going to refinance the property, when are we going to get rents up, when are we going to do the work, when are we going to stabilize the property, when are we going to sell the property, when are we going to do 1031, when are we going to do accelerated depreciation, all these things we figured out exactly when we're going to do them and who's going to do them, right? Who's responsible for these things. So expectations today and also down the line, and of course there will be variance but we got, we have very good ballparks on every single thing, so that the entire project, we've thought all the way from the beginning of the partnership to the end of the partnership in that particular venture. And I think that we're probably going to do lots of other ventures together, as we find more opportunities that make sense for both of us. That's what you got to do as a business, as a marriage. So with, me and my partner, Austin, we're business partners. I mean, you're joined financially, you're joined with your time, it's very similar. So you have same thing with, if you go, join your organization with another organization, I mean, things get hairy, it can be really messy, right? Especially when you're dealing with millions of dollars in assets and people's lives and things like that. So you got to really make sure on the front end, it's worth a deal not happening than getting into a bad deal. Okay. That's partners. That's the equity thing that we did. We could have alternatively tried to wholesale the property. Honestly, he probably would have been the buyer that we would have tried to sell to. He'd already expressed interest in the deal, and it would have been a pretty easy decision for him. We could have done that and made potentially, $100,000 assignment or something like that. I don't know what it would have been if we would have tried to go that route, but that was tempting to do and just collect a big check and apply it towards other projects. But ultimately, we decided that we wanted to go ahead and take that building down to build our portfolio, build our resume, and build our experience and longer term wealth by going ahead and buying the property as opposed to just wholesaling it. I think that's important to do because, on the one hand, you do need to continue making cash with wholesaling and stuff like that, but you also do need to build your portfolio in all conditions and just consistently kind of dollar cost averaging, building up your rentals, because it's very tempting when you start making a lot of money flipping and wholesaling. You're like, I can make a lot more money just not keeping anything in the short term, right? But in the long term, you're going to look back and wish you would have built up more assets when you could have, because those are the things that are going to keep paying you forever as long as you maintain them. And that's the decision we made with our goals. We want to build a lot of rentals and make bigger deals, bigger partnerships. And so this 26 unit acquisition was the next step in our Rolodex of things that we've done. Okay, guys, so we've entered the final stage of how we bought the building. We've got the deal, the debt, the equity plan is all executed. Worked out a lot better than I even thought, because even though we're giving up half the equity, we're also not bringing half the money, and as well as the time responsibilities are not on our shoulders because partners managing all that. It actually worked out really good for everybody. A very conducive partnership. We of course brought the deal. We worked the deal. There's months involved in that, so that was on the front end, and then he's going to take over a lot of the back end, which he has a team for. So it's really not going to be a lot of time off of him, and his team's already in place. So it's really great. It's going to work out great. So we got it all lined up. Now, really, all that was left was we went to the bank, and we're like, hey, we're good to go. We have the money. Go ahead and order the appraisal. We figured it out. We went and interviewed with the bank, and they were like, okay, let's do it. So they did that, got the appraisal done. It actually appraised for, I believe, 1.13 million. So we're buying it for 950. We immediately walked into, appraised value, 100 and I believe 80,000 in equity day one. So almost doubling our equity on paper, because we brought about that much to closing, about, just under 200,000 to closing. And so that was fantastic, getting that high appraisal, and, made that loan close really easy. And we actually were able to close about 2 weeks ahead of schedule, which is fantastic as well. So really doing well there and getting a jump on the project. That's basically it. Once you have all those pieces in place, we did have to get insurance. That was one thing that we did get, but you have to get that lined up in advance. But actually the insurance broker pulled out basically the day before closing because their underwriting team bounced it. And so we scrambled, found another broker, and was able to actually get another policy on that building the night before closing. So it didn't delay, but we could have freaked out, but we just handled it, used our resources, called up some other connections. We solved that problem. So now we've bought the building. At the time of this recording, we've owned it for about a month and a half. We're getting started with our business plan, which is renovating and turning over units. And we've announced that there will be rent increases and the building is going to be improved and things like that. Some people are leaving, some people are staying, but we're going to slowly roll these out over time because, we don't want to shock the building. We don't want people leaving in droves because we want that cash flow that's going to be coming in every month to offset the cost, like the payments and things. But yeah, guys, that's how you do it. So, all these stuff came together in a very short period of time. The partner on this deal, we've met less than 6 months ago and formed a very strong relationship. And so that relationship was ready when we decided to strike on this building. There really wasn't, besides the skills that we've just learned and the money we saved. This deal happened very fast. It wasn't easy to put together by any means, but you can do it too, for sure. Some people that I know have gone out there and bought bigger buildings right off the bat, and you can definitely do that. For us, we've kind of stepped it up from singles to multis, and we're still doing singles single families, and we'll continue to find more multifamily complexes as well. But this stuff is very achievable. You just have to understand the process and put the pieces in place. It doesn't really matter what age you are. I'm 23 years old, but playing in a world with guys that are 30 years, 40 years older than me, and respected. And you just have to be competent and respected and do what you say you're going to do, and you'll get it done. Guys, I hope that helped. Please like the video now and subscribe if you want more content like this, guys. I want to share a lot of this good information with you about wholesaling, acquiring multifamilies, all this good stuff, guys. I'm giving it all the way to you guys in these videos, and I want to share as much value as I can. Please subscribe. I'm Dan Kohan with Dan Kohan, and I will see you in the next chapter.